All right, everybody, thanks for joining. This is Bill Van Orsdel from BookFuel with today's Wednesday webinar, Marketing Your Book, the Post-Launch Phase. Of course, the quote I have here at the bottom says, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. I love that quote. It's from, I believe, from John Wanamaker, who was a retail baron back in, I believe, the early 1900s. And his problem was, of course, that he felt like he was spending a lot of time and money marketing his stores, and he knew that a fair amount of that effort and that money was going to waste. So tonight I want to focus on how we avoid doing that during this post-launch phase in marketing. Of course, I'd like to remind everyone that I'm recording this for playback later, sometime around midnight tonight, depending on your time zone. You're probably going to get an automated email, hopefully with a link back to this broadcast. You're also welcome to request tonight's slides. Just send me an email at my BookFuel address. And of course, please chime in with questions. We had some great questions and some suggestions from the audience in our earlier broadcast. So I'd ask you to go ahead and chime away. Just throw them up in the question box. I'll acknowledge them, and I'll be happy to answer them. The checklist for today hasn't changed much in 2 weeks. Basically, you're ready to go. You've got a budget. You've got expectations. You've got experience, and everything's in alignment. So tonight's key points is probably one of the shortest lists I've ever created, and that's because I think that we're going to spend a lot of time focusing on how we find that market. How do we find those people that we're trying to market our book to? And we call them super fans. And I think that if you are bringing your book to market, if you don't already have a fan base or a super fan base, and I'll talk about what I mean by that, you need one. And of course, the first step is you have to be one. You have to be a super fan to know one, so to speak. And we'll talk about how to profile super fans and where you might be able to find them. And I also want to encourage you to give yourself an endpoint. You have to know where this is going to stop. You have to know whether it's going to stop when you bring your next book out, when you spend a certain amount of time and money, when a certain number of calendar months have passed. But you have to give yourself permission to stop marketing this book. A lot of authors hate marketing. They don't like it. They associate it with bad things, and they don't want to do it. So at the very least, if you have to eat that bucket of worms, let's know where the bottom of it is. And then I've got a bunch of ideas, many of them follow-ons to our last presentation on the launch phase for awareness, for interest, for generating trial and evaluation and purchase during this long marathon. Now, just to review our sort of nomenclature that we're using, the framework that we're using to do this evaluation, I believe that there are really three phases in the marketing of a book. There's that pre-launch part. It's before it goes on sale. And yes, you are marketing your book before it ever goes on sale. Absolutely. Then there's launch, where you are focused very hard on getting reviews and getting a positive start out of the block. And then finally, the one we're going to talk about tonight, the phase we're going to talk about tonight, which is the post-launch. This is the beginning of the marathon, or this is the marathon. Your book is available for purchase. You're trying to keep sales up above a certain sales rank on Amazon. This is really what they call the long tail of selling. And just a quick review, we talked about two seminars ago, we talked about consumer buying behavior and how we want to have an answer for each stage of our potential readers' consumer buying behavior, for the awareness stage, the interest stage, trial and evaluation, and purchase. And as I mentioned, this is really, when you really start to dig into this, what's called sort of the boundless inventory state of digital goods, that means that in the past, the number of books available at any time in the market was probably limited by the number of slots available in the biggest bookstore in the country, right? And that's how many books you could have on the market in any given quarter. But now, because of print on demand and because of ebooks, every book that's brought to market today as an ebook can still be on sale in 4 months, in 9 months, in 4 years, in 14 years. And so it's that long tail where your book still exists, still relevant to your readers, still relevant to your market. You may be selling the book that you launched today 5 years from now, and it didn't have to be a bestseller in order to get pegged and left in the bookstore. It could have been a mid-list, and you're still making money on it. Just a quick sound check. I want to make sure that everyone can hear me. Someone just throw up a question for me in the question box. I got started. I hit the record button, and I just want to make sure that everyone's actually still with me. Okay. I don't know if anyone can hear me. We'll keep going. Okay, where to start and end. So book buyers, and we'll break this down, are, oh, good. Thanks, Ann. Appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, so book buyers. So first of all, the only people that are going to buy your book, first of all, not everybody in the United States buys books. Right, so we're going to start with the population of the United States, and we're going to drill down onto book buyers. We're going to drill down onto super readers. We'll talk about those. We'll drill down onto super fans. And I think as a marketer, you have to have a goal, right? A goal to measure yourself against. And it could be, I want to sell enough books to make back the money I spent bringing it to market. I want to sell enough books on a monthly basis to pay on my car loan, or whatever the answer is for you. And I want to suggest a goal for you, which is that you're trying to convert a certain number of your genre's super fans to become your super fans. Again, we'll talk about super fans in a moment. We'll talk about how you find your super fans, and I want you to find them. I want you to join that community early, back in the pre-launch stage. I want you to engage those readers and those reviewers as appropriate, given the stage of your book and the brand that you're building in the market. As you make your way through this stage, this post-launch stage, you're going to experiment with price. You may experiment with your genre. You may experiment with your description and with different keywords. And again, as I said, you have to give yourself permission at some point to stop marketing this book. One of the guys I work with, I mentioned this earlier, he's got this saying. He says, I don't mind eating a bucket of worms as long as I know where the bottom of the bucket is. So that's sort of short-term pain, long-term gain. Okay, so I want to profile a super fan. We'll sort of approach this like the FBI does. What kind of car do they drive? What kind of music do they listen to? What kind of clothes do they wear? Where do they shop for groceries? So let's start with 316 million people in the United States in 2013. That's a U.S. Census Bureau estimate. And again, the Census Bureau estimates. Oh, Ann asked, how can I experiment with price if Amazon controls price? Actually, Ann, the good news is that Amazon doesn't control your price. They do control royalty, right? So they have certain price bands. At 99 cents, you earn 35% royalty, all the way up to $2.98. At $2.99 to $9.99, you earn a 70% royalty. And then when you get to $10 and above, you're back to 35%. So the bottom line is you get to price your ebook anywhere you want except zero, unless you're in KDP Select. And your print book, of course, you can price it anywhere from cost upwards. So you absolutely get to control your costs, and that's something you'll experiment with. So let's go back to book buyers. So in the United States in 2013, there were 250 million people who are 15 years or older. Why do I pick 15 years? Is because probably sometime around the age of 15, kids start to get pocket money, allowance money that they might spend on books. So I call these people, these 250 million potential consumers out there, eligible to buy. Now, out of that eligible to buy, about 39% bought one book last year. So, I'm sad to report that the other 60% of Americans actually don't buy a book, but that still leaves us with 98 million people to target. Now, I just threw this in for fun. Last year, 2013, 50 million of those 98 million people bought a copy of 50 Shades of Grey. Think about that for a second. But let's move on to the more important number, which is 16 million people in the United States bought or buy at least one book per week. Now, these are called power buyers. That's what the industry calls them. This is from a study called Consumer Attitudes Toward Ebook Reading. The study was actually done in February of 22. I've had to put together different studies from a couple different years, but they're all close enough that I think that our rough, and I've done some rounding, that our rough percentages still hold. So 16 million power buyers in the United States. I call them super readers. These super readers quickly consume all the bestseller books in their favorite genre. Like the traditional publishing industry probably isn't producing enough books to keep these super readers happy, so they are actively looking for new books by new authors. Okay, and that's you. That's going to be you. This is why you want to concentrate on super readers, because they are going to be the most easy to convert into super fans. They're going to be the most easy to convert into your readers because they have such an appetite for books that when they're out looking for books, they're willing to take a chance. especially if you've got a low price, 99 cents, $2.99. I mean, that's almost a throwaway cost to buy a book these days. Okay, so let's talk about super reader demographics. So again, this is the 16 million people last year who buy one book every week. They're reading more than 50 books a year. They purchase 60% of all ebooks. So a very small percentage of our population drives this huge wave of ebooks that we've seen. They're responsible for half of all the revenue for ebooks. They skew more towards female than male, so 62% female, 38% male. They also skew younger than traditional book buyers. So the people that don't buy as many books, the histogram of the age breakdown, and we'll see one of those in just a moment, shows that they're typically older, but the super readers are younger. You've got plenty that are employed full-time. Some are retired. The median household income, so the band in the middle of the distribution, their bell curve distribution, is the 50 to 75K a year band. So plenty of disposable income to spend $1, $3, $4, $5 on your book. And they're pretty well spread out around the country. It's not like they're all in the city. It's not like they're all in the burbs or in small towns where there aren't any bookstores anymore. You've got a pretty even distribution around the United States. Actually, I'd even say this: if you imagine that, and I'd have to do a census analysis, but the population of the United States is concentrated to some degree in cities. So actually, the city phenomena, you're less likely to find a super reader in a city. So if you're doing your marketing in small towns and suburbs, you're more likely to find these super readers. Okay, so let's talk about genre share of mind by age. We'll break it out by age. We'll break it out by gender. But so what do I mean by share of mind? So this is a Harris poll from 2010, where the question that they asked to the pollees was, what types of books have you read in the past year? And you can select more than one. So someone could say, yeah, I've read a fiction and a nonfiction book. Someone could say, yeah, I read science fiction and I read graphic novels, and I wrote a Western. I read a Western last year. So this is simply, you've read at least one book in all the genres where you put a tick mark. And here's what the breakdown is. And why is this important? Because this shows you, of the 16 million people last year who are power buyers, who are super readers, and who buy a book a week, of the 16 million people, 79% of them read fiction. 78% of them read nonfiction. Okay, so there's not some huge imbalance where everybody reads fiction and nobody reads nonfiction, or the reverse. There's a pretty even balance amongst people who buy a book a week. Now, within the fiction genre, you've got a breakdown of what percentage of those people said, yeah, I also buy science fiction, I also buy literature, I also buy romance. Now, what would be really interesting if we could actually get at the Harris data directly is if we could correlate, well, people that read science fiction are much likely to also read graphic novels than they are to read chick lit. And people who read romance are much more likely to read chick lit than they are to read Westerns. You know, I don't know what the associations are. I'm just totally speculating there. But it would be interesting to know, because then it would help me as a marketer figure out, okay, my science fiction audience also reads graphic novels. So wherever those graphic novels people are having good luck advertising and doing reviews, I want to go there too. But in any case, we can certainly look at this and we can say, okay, for example, science fiction, of the 79% of power buyers that read fiction, 26% of those, so about 20% of the 16 million, roughly, are reading science fiction. So if I'm writing a science fiction book, that's good to know. I have the potential to get in front of them, to get mind share from 20% of 16 million people. Okay, that's good to know. Now, I also highlighted in yellow some of these cells. Let's talk about why I highlighted them, why they're important. If I write mystery, thriller, and crime, it's pretty clear from this data, from the Harris poll, that their mature audience, and these terms above, echo boomers, Gen X, baby boomers, matures, these are just typical terms that market researchers use to describe age brackets. And that's, in fact, those are the age brackets I have underneath of them. It looks like the mature audience, 65 and plus, are the dominant readers, not by a terrible amount, but to some degree, of mystery, thriller, and crime books. For literary fiction, it looks like the echo boomers are the dominant buyers and readers of, or the dominant readers of literature, of literary fiction. Same thing's true for graphic novels. The Echo Boomers are the ones who are reading graphic novels. If I look at Westerns, again, the matures have a leg up there. Similarly, if I go down into nonfiction, it's pretty clear that for business books, the Gen X generation at 12% on the very bottom of the chart, they are the dominant readers of business books. So if in my marketing, I'm trying to drill into, and I'm offered in some digital marketing, like a Facebook promoted post or something, to drill into a particular age group, now I know for my particular genre which age group, if I got to pick, I might want to drill into. Similarly for self-help books, Gen X readers are typically reading those as well. Similarly, if you go over and look over here in the gender table related to each of these genres, for example, if I'm writing chick lit, I mean, it may seem obvious, but it's nice to have data that confirms it. It looks like females read chick lit on a 3-to-1 ratio versus men. So for every one guy reading chick lit out there, there's 3 gals reading chick lit. Westerns, more dominated by male readers. Romance, super dominated by female readers. It's more than 10 times. It's like 10-to-1 or 11-to-1 ratio of female readers to male readers. It doesn't mean you might not have male readers who are super fans, but clearly that's the strongest signal you could find right there, that female readers, and then of course if you look across the age demographics, really female readers of any age are reading romance. So in one respect that's good, because that means that when you go to market with your romance message, and you can't pick individual bands of ages to target, you'll have an equally good or equally bad, depending on how you look at it, a chance at finding a romance reader in a given target market that's female, based on age. So you can look at this chart, you can find your genre in it. I'd be willing to bet that fantasy is included in science fiction, although it's not particularly listed here. It could be in the other fiction below, but I'm almost certain that it's up there by science fiction. And I also, if you click on this link, the Harris Poll 2010, you can actually go to the webpage where there's a little more data and a little more description of this. So let's hold some of these numbers in mind. I'm going to bear in mind, when I get to an example in a moment, that of power buyers, 79% read fiction, and of that 79%, 26% read science fiction. Let's go take a look. Okay, so I write science fiction, or I will write it someday when I have time, and I want the super fans. I want the super readers, so I want to figure out how do I find the super fans, how many are there, because I want to set myself a goal of reaching a certain number of super fans. We'll talk about why that's important for a moment. So we're going to start with 16 million super readers last year in 2013. 79% of those super readers are super readers of fiction, and 20%, and so that's 12 million something, 26% of that 12 million 6 are super readers of science fiction. So now I'm down to a target market of 3,286,400 super readers. It's my goal to reach 0.1% of those super readers and convert them to be my super fans. So all I want for Christmas is 3,286 super fans. We'll talk about super fans are in a moment, but that's my goal. So now I have a very specific, very concrete goal. I know how big that number is. I know that that's what I'm trying to get accomplished. And by the way, maybe I don't want to go after 0.1 of 1%. Maybe I want to go after 1/100th of 1% of the super reader market, or I want to go after. I'm really aggressive. I want to go after 1% of the market and convert them to become super fans. I'm going to pick the middle road, 0.1 of 1%. Okay, so my sci-fi super fans are going to drive my sales. Let's talk about how that works. A super fan, by definition, is someone who buys every single book you publish until you publish one that breaks their trust. But the bottom line is they like your voice, they like your story, they like your nonfiction, they like your fiction, they like what you write, and they're going to buy every single book you can bring out. Maybe as many as they'd buy one a week if they could. If you pumped out that many books, they love you so much they'd buy one a week. So if I'm targeting 3,286 super readers to become my super fans, and I publish 4 books a year priced at $2.99 each, well, if I sell 4 books to each of my 3,286 super fans, that means I'm going to sell 13,000 books to my super fans out of that 4-book collection. Now, of course, you'd sell some in the first quarter, more in the second quarter, third, and fourth quarter. So you wouldn't actually sell that many in a year, but if you kept doing one every quarter, you can expect to sell that many in any 12-month period to your superfans. Now, my superfans, because they love me so much, because they tweet about me, because they're excited, they lend my book to other people, and they tell other people they should buy my book. I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to say that because I have superfans purchasing 13,000 of my books a year, that they will influence another 13,000 regular sci-fi readers, some of whom might be power readers but aren't my superfans, and some of whom might be regular sci-fi readers, to buy one of my books. So they're responsible not only for the book they buy, but for one more. If I can earn $2 per book sold, okay, how do I get $2? If you take a $2.99 ebook price in the Amazon store times a 70% commission, or 70% royalty, I'm sorry, you earn $2.09 for every book that you sell. So I rounded up. I said, let's take $2. And how could that $2 be $3.50 instead? Let's say my author brand starts to take off. Okay, people are really buying my books. I'm putting out a series. Maybe my strategy is first book free, second book $4.99, third book $4.99. On a $4.99 book, I'm going to earn $3.49, or I rounded up $3.50. So you can redo these numbers with $3.50 instead of $2. Anyway, $2 times my 26,000 books, that's $52,000 a year in book sales. Now I'm thinking about quitting my day job. $52,000 a year lets me do a lot as an author. It certainly gives me room to produce my books professionally, to get them edited, so on and so forth. It's a great start. And if I can do that year after year after year after year, those first 4 books I sell also sell some more in year 2 when I bring out 4 more. And those 8 books that I've sold also sell some more in year 3 when I bring out 4 more. In order to sell 3,286 books, copies of a single book in the Amazon bookstore, your book needs to hit a book rank of 26,000 or better and stay there throughout the year. So let me say that again. If you have a book in the market and you want to sell roughly 3,286 of them, you need to be at an Amazon book rank of 26,000 or better throughout a 12-month period. Where do you get that number? If you want a confirmation of that number, go download the author earnings reports from Hugh Howey's website, authorearnings.com. It's where he and a data guy that he's hired have done a fantastic job of scraping the Amazon website to take some snapshots of data. And in there, they're estimating sales based on sales rank using reported sales from actual self-published authors. And they are nice enough to not only provide that table for extrapolation, but to also actually show you on the chart the rank that's associated with a certain number of sales per day. So it's very easy to go look up and confirm. They feel very, very confident about that number. So I feel pretty confident telling you 26,000 or better would be better. So now you got to have 4 books at 26,000 or better throughout the year. So one of your tasks tonight might be to go look in your genre and go into the Amazon Kindle ebook store, look in your genre, and you'll see below page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, ... page 413. Just last night when I was doing research, I went into the science fiction genre just for fun, and I started clicking forward on pages to drill down on books to see how far back I have to be in the top sellers list in adventure science fiction to be 26,000 or better. And I think the answer is that the data is actually a little bit wonky in Amazon, but I think the answer is I could be book number 400 in that list. I could be book number 800 in that list. In other words, I could be the 800th most popular science fiction adventure subgenre book in that the 400th most popular book in that genre. If I could stay at 400 or above, I'm going to sell 3,286 books. That seems doable. That seems like a goal that we can aim for as a marketer of our books. Okay, let's talk about profiling our superfans. So, the question is, now we sort of know who our superfans are. We know how many of them there are. We know how many we're going to target. We have some idea about their general demographics. Now you have to sort of put on your I am a superfan hat. It's pretty common for people who write in a particular genre to be natural fans and super readers of that genre. So you've got to think, put on your hat, where do you go to find out about new books, and think about where they're going to go. So one of the places they're definitely going to go is in the top 100 paid and the top 100 free lists in their preferred Amazon genres. So why is that important to you? Because you're going to pick keywords, you're going to pick key phrases, they're going to mean your title, your subtitle, your book description, and your metadata, so that when people are browsing or searching, they are going to pop up your book. I also learned something pretty interesting. It's not in the slide deck, but Amazon, and I'm not certain exactly when they made this change, but you'll notice now when you're drilling down into Amazon subgenres, they have the ability for you to turn on filters on the side. So you could turn on a filter that says alien or invasion or war or whatever the appropriate keywords are. Notice I said keywords are for your genre, and it will narrow down the list of books on the screen. So Amazon, if you drill into the Amazon help pages for uploading books to KDP, they will tell you, do you want to be in the list of books that come up when someone clicks on filter by alien or filter by robot or filter by whatever the answer is? Then you have to use the word alien or the word robot or the word Genesis or the word singularity in your keywords. Very interesting piece of information from Amazon. So next, the people that are looking for more books in their genre, they are rabid fans on Goodreads, on Library Thing. They are in the appropriate groups in Goodreads and Library Thing and other online book groups and reading groups, and you need to go and be a part of those groups. So we're talking now about long-term marketing. You need to be in there as a super fan and as an author. It's got to be careful the line you walk in there, but that's where you can go find those groups. They're in genre-based book clubs. They might be, now we're talking offline, they might be in meetups. They might be in science fiction meetups. They might be in weight loss meetups. But they're out there doing things in the real world together, not just online together. But now back online, they may congregate in groups or around certain pages in Facebook or in LinkedIn. They may be monitoring trending Twitter hashtags, right? So I don't have a great example to throw off the top of my head that's safe for women and children and for the children in the audience, but there was a great Olivia Wilde hashtag that made huge waves just in the past couple of days. She was breastfeeding her child in a restaurant, and she sent out a hashtag, and I mean, it was kind of funny. And I thought to myself, wow, if I had a book on kids' health or a book on breastfeeding or a book on how to raise your kids or how to raise smart kids or bright kids or all the good things that breastfeeding does for you, then I would have jumped on the hashtag that she put in her tweet because it got huge play all over the internet, and I would have tried to add to that conversation with a hashtag in my own Twitter account. These super readers that you're trying to turn into super fans, they follow popular book review blogs in your genre or in related genres. And by the way, while we're talking about super fans, they may also be super fans in a particular genre of art in another medium. So they might be fans of cosplay or soap operas or musicals or science fiction television or heavy metal music. Or, I mean, you're a super fan. You have an idea of what your fans are like, and you know what they do when they're not reading. Or at least you can go ask some of your super fans what they do when they're not reading, and you can go there and do that. Ann says, do I need to read a lot of books through Goodreads and Library Thing? Actually, Ann, you don't have to read the books to make a footprint on Goodreads and Library Thing. What Goodreads and Library Thing ask you to do is they ask you to simply enter in your profile all of the books you have read. And, of course, they also ask you to invite more friends. But the bottom line is when you're creating your profile, whether you decide to invite friends or not, you know, you go in and you talk about all the great books that you've read in your genre. Sometimes you write reviews about them, but that's how you get to be sort of a part of that group, is to, you know, show them, hey, I do read in this genre. Just for fun, last night I went into Google and I typed 3 simple words: science fiction fan, and a whole page came up listing all kinds of things that science fiction fans do and say and go and where they have the most fun. And one of the entries was, and I linked it here in case you want to see from this slide, 11 of the best online science fiction communities you should join now. That's just screaming to me as a science fiction author to go out, find those 11 communities, join them, participate, engage. and at the appropriate time, perhaps introduce my book. So whatever genre you're writing in, you can do all these things. All of these things help you find your superfans, connect with them, engage with them, and give them a reason to buy your book. Okay, any questions about this profiling concept of super readers, genre, share of mind, superfans? You know, whether you're going for 1/100th of 1% or 1/10th of 1% or 1%. Any questions about? And there's some science here, but there's also some art. You know, we're mixing together data from a couple sources, and we could probably take issue with, you know, how super accurate it is, but we've done a lot of rounding, and I think we've been conservative just to give us an idea of sort of what's going on here. Okay, so here's some awareness activities to try during your post-launch phase. Again, the idea here is I'm trying to make super readers, super fan. I'm trying to make super readers aware of my book so that they might buy it, read it, love it, and become a super fan. So, you know, back during launch, I said, hey, you're going to start, you want to send out a giant blast to all your social communities and say, I just launched a book, pat myself on the back, I hope it goes well. It's like taking my baby and sending it to its first day of school. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to go back and you're going to start doing milestone posts. Hey, I just got my first review. Hey, I just got my 10th review. Hey, I just sold my first 10 books. Hey, I just sold my first 100 books. I just sold my first 1,000 books. You're generating momentum and interest in the conversation about your triumphs and your setbacks in your effort to reach your fans. I'm going to suggest that you run an engagement contest to your email fan base, maybe with a limited time premium offer. And an engagement contest could be something as simple as, now that you've gotten to know my protagonist or my antagonist, who do you think should play them in a movie? Send me a picture of the actor you think should play them in a movie. Or send me a picture of you reading my book in a place that you think is most like your favorite scene in the book. And I'll randomly pick from all the entries and give you X. So again, getting your fans to engage with you, to especially with pictures, is super beneficial because you can reuse those pictures on your Facebook page. You can use them on your Pinterest page. You can absolutely get your fans more excited and turn them into super fans. You're also going to run price discount experiments. So your book's been out for a couple of months. Maybe you brought it out at $4.99. Maybe you brought it out at $3.99. And now you want to try and bump the price up, or you want to bump the price down. If you're going to go to Bargain Booksy or Pixel of Ink, or you're going to try BookBub, you're going to want to drop your price to, you know, whatever the next tier down is, and run one of these campaigns and see what that does for you. Even if you decide, and we'll talk about it at the end, even if you decide to join the KDP Select program, if you haven't, you want to do it for 1 quarter and have some free days off, even the fact that you have to give away a bunch of books, it might at least generate some more reviews for you. I'm going to suggest that you keep running some short duration, spaced out Goodreads giveaway campaigns. So this might be once a month. This might be at the end of each month. And Ann says, can you print pictures of others without permission? And I would absolutely ask them for permission, or make it part of the rules of your game or your engagement contest. That and usually, if you've asked them to link a picture back to you, what you're really going to do is link it. But I don't think you actually want to print them out. You may just want to link to them on Facebook, link to them on Pinterest, so they show up naturally. You probably ran at least one giveaway campaign during your launch phase. And if you asked for these slides last time and you followed that link to that giveaway campaign, you probably saw that author recommends, and I would recommend it too, that you just keep running multiple short campaigns. You know, the 3 times that they see your giveaway campaign on Goodreads is new giveaways that have just been created. So you're at the moment you create it, and you got to be careful not to create it in a way that works unfavorably for you. So understand the approval timing. In other words, space it forward, space it out a few days when you ask for approval to go live with a giveaway campaign. But people will see it. Goodreads users, the 30 million of them, will see it high on the list, so above the fold, if you will, probably on the day you launch. They'll probably also see it just as it's about to expire. So rather than running one for 3 months, you know, you might be better off running a 5-day one or a 7-day one 3 times over the 3 months. I'm also going to ask you to find at least one offline opportunity to create awareness. This is reading, signings, speakings, panels, somewhere you can go where people want to hear about either your journey as an author, they want to hear about your expertise, they want to hear about what inspired you to write this book, or they just want to hear you read. So find some place to do that. Again, you're looking for where your super readers are, where you're going to get exposure to them to create awareness. Do some social listening. So start getting familiar with how Twitter works. Find trending hashtags that are relevant to your book and join the conversation. Tweet out something that's meaningful, that's valuable, that has a link to your book, that's interesting, that's funny, and see if you can get people who might also happen to be following that Twitter hashtag because it's hot. It's whatever Kim Kardashian tweeted last night, and the hashtag's really funny, but you're going to hijack the hashtag and try and jump in the conversation with something that's related tangentially. I mean, we can all have a big, huge discussion about whether we like Kim or not, but one thing's for sure is that Kim and celebrities like her that have giant Twitter followings can kick off the popularity of hashtags pretty quickly. Also, during this awareness phase, keep going on your blog. Maybe you've set an editorial calendar that has you posting once a week or 3 times a week, and you're using that to also fill up Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and Pinterest. Keep doing it. You might be frustrated at first. You've only got 2 followers or 10 visitors or 20 visitors, but you're building a base of material. And we'll talk about doing micro content in just a moment. Okay, so now let's go on to the interest phase, the interest stage of buying behavior and things to generate interest in your book. So you started with some interest posts about your book to your regular community during launch. I want you to continue those. On this morning's call, one of the authors said one of the things she does is that she, if you're not familiar with it, she does cosplay for her protagonist in her book at cosplay conventions. And people who are interested in her cool cosplay costume come up and ask her about it, and she hands out what are effectively bookmarks. So she's got a QR code, she's got a bookmark, she might even have a sample at the end of the QR code, or she might have a book trailer. But that's how she's generating interest in the real world. And then she takes, what I suggested her to this morning was, I said, get pictures, right? Get some pictures posed, give credit to the photographer, or if it's you, if it's your camera, and get permission of the other people you're taking pictures with, and post those pictures online with comments about your book. Anything you can do with the visuals is helpful. When you did your launch, you probably did a blog tour. Blog tours are not very expensive. Probably the hardest part about them is generating the blog entries to go with them. And you used Bitly to create trackable URLs so that you could figure out which of those blog entries, which topics, and which blog sites drove traffic back to your author anchor website. Since now you know who the successful ones were for you, go back to them. Either ask to post again on their site or ask them to post on your site. Give them a chance to start putting some footprints back on yours and to backlink to you. Okay, also I want you to consider how you can atomize your book's content using small snippets to generate interest in a larger property. So we've got 2 authors right now who keep posting to BookFuel's Facebook page a one sentence out of their book, kind of a cool, neat, pithy, interesting, topical, relevant, current, almost hashtag-like sentence with a link back to their book. And I don't mind if they do that. I think that's great. What they're doing is they're going out there trying to find their super fans, their super readers, and they think that some of those might be visiting our site, so they're engaging with us on our Facebook page. It's a fantastic idea. So you need to think about what in your book. It's a character sketch. It's a list of 3 things you do every morning when you get up. It's interesting research behind the science fiction decisions you made in your book. Take that micro content, blog about it, post it, Facebook it, and put little snippets out there to get people interested in buying the larger book. You are measuring your results, right? You're keeping a graph every day of what your book rank is, what your sales are, what your income is, what your rank within your genre is, what your author rank is, and you are trying to relate those results to what you're doing on the marketing front. So I changed my price, I changed my description, I changed my keywords. I ran a book club campaign. I ran a Pixel Link campaign. I did an email blast, right? So I'm just kind of listing some of these activities we've been talking about, and you're graphing all these. You're making a little graph to see which ones work. Blog about that. Blog about your efforts as an author to find your audience. Blog about both your successes and your failures. What's working, what's not working. There are people who like to peek behind the curtain, right? Sometimes they want to see what does it take, and it makes you real to your audience. They want to see what does it take to make a book successful or to find your audience. And here you are sharing information, and other people might find it interesting and share it with their friends. If you had some blogs that said no at launch, go back to them and say, hey, see if they've got a slot now. Tell them about your momentum. See if you can execute guest posts. Keep using those incremental testimonials and review blurbs that you're getting to keep your website, your description, to keep those things fresh. Give them an update. Get the next testimonial, get the next review blurb in there, just to keep them interesting and keep them new for people who might be coming back to your blog on a regular basis, or who visit your page again, thinking about buying your book. And now over at what you're going to do as part of this long-term generating interest in my book is you're going to strategically target some of the people that you think are, oh, Ann's got a question. What's the author anchor page? So, Ann, I call the author anchor page, for most authors, and I believe you've got one, it's their author anchor website. So it might be annwrites.com as an example. And I just can't remember what yours is. Now, Amazon has an author page, and you want to keep that fully updated and link back to your blog and link back to your page and have your book trailer up on that page and have a nice bio written that's down to earth and unique and interesting. But the author anchor site I'm talking about is the one that you own, you control, you pay for hosting, and you had your web designer build it for you. During this time, you're also going to start thinking strategically about some big name influencers in your subject area or your genre. And these could be reviewers, these could be editors, these could be other authors, these could be celebrities, these could be anyone who's got a bigger reach than you do. It's just that simple, right? And you want to go find those people on Google+, on Facebook, Twitter, and you want to befriend them, like them, follow them, invite them to reciprocate. And the idea here is that even if they just say thank you for following them and they put your Twitter handle on there, you're going to get an instant pop in SEO, in notoriety on the web. And because if someone's got 250,000 Twitter followers, and goodness, if they possibly retweeted something you said, boom, all of a sudden it's like you have a list of 250,000 Twitter followers. So you want to reach out to these, basically you're getting out the elephant gun or the whale harpoon. You're going out there and you're trying to find the biggest possible draws out there, and you might get lucky. It's like, we all know how lightning strikes. It doesn't strike from the clouds downward. Lightning starts with something on the ground called a leader, and it reaches up, the leader reaches up in a trail of ionized air, and then a charge jumps down from the clouds after that leader has reached a significant distance off the ground. That's what you're doing. You're like the leader. You're reaching up to see if you can get lightning to strike you. And so that's what you're doing here with expanding your social media circles. Let's just do a quick time check. Okay, we got about 15 minutes left. So trial and evaluation. So the consumer buying stage of trial and evaluation, what do we do during post-launch phase to keep pushing trial and evaluation out there to our super readers? This is the point where I want you to consider, and I'll tell you why I say carefully in a moment, consider submitting your book for regional and national writing contests in your genre. Now, I say carefully because I want you to be exceedingly careful of two potential dangers here. One danger is, and both of these are sort of shady practices, so they fall into the same danger zone, but one of them is you want to be very careful that you're not, by entering a writing contest, one of whose promised benefits is your book will get published. You want to make sure you're not entering a writing contest where you're forced to give up your rights for some reason. So be very careful. Read all the rules, and if the rules aren't clearly explained somewhere, then be extra careful. Also, I want you to be very careful of contests that have some sort of fee associated with them. Now, and these will be reading fees or entry fees or something like that. And probably something that's simple like a $5 reading fee or something small shouldn't be a huge red flag. But if you see a $100 entry fee or something like that, you need to do some serious research on the web and figure out if this is a legit deal, right? I mean, it could be somebody who just threw up a website and said, let me see if I can get 50,000 authors to give me $5 each or $50 each for this giant writing award, and then I'll take all their money and I'll disappear. So I just want you to be very careful. But if you can even just get in the finalist zone, let alone get picked for one of these writing contests, that is a great blurb to throw on your cover, a great thing to say on your Author Anchor website, a great accolade to add into your marketing materials. Anne's got a question. She says, what button do I push to have Twitter follow me? I try to get followers. When I accept a person, I end up following them. So, yep, and the Twitter works like this. You go out and follow people, and that's interesting. And yes, it's a great way to start understanding how people tweet and what kind of messages they send out, because you're following them and you can read their message in your Twitter feed. But what you want to begin doing is you want to start tweeting out interesting, fun, cool things related to your book or your subject area or just your life or just life as you observe it. And you want to start getting people interested in those so that they say, wow, that was kind of a cool thing Anne said there. I wonder if she's got other cool tweets. I'm going to go visit her Twitter page. And then they see all the tweets that you've been sending out for the past few weeks. They say, well, these are kind of funny or cool or neat or touching or whatever the answer is. And then they decide to follow you. And the key is you want people to follow you in roughly the same ratio that you follow them. So if you follow someone and they don't follow you back, you should consider after time perhaps unfollowing them, because there's a point when you reach Twitter follower number 2001 where you can't add any more, you can't follow any more people unless people follow you in a roughly 80% ratio. So there's a whole, I mean, we probably should. I'll put together a webinar on this whole Twitter thing, how to use it right, what to do with it, and we can certainly do that. But just the key here is, while you're trying to build your Twitter following, the use of hashtags, the use of valuable and interesting tweets is the key. Okay, I know in our last webinar I said, hey, go find an author and exchange back of the book space. I said, go find an author in your genre whose book you like, who's roughly in the same boat you are, trying to find super fans, and they're roughly at the same stage in their career as you are, and you honestly like their stuff. Go ask them if, in return for putting a few chapters of their book at the end of your book and a link to your book, if you could do the same with them. Well, now what I'm going to suggest is, and you may or may not have had success with that, now I'm going to suggest go to another author, maybe it's the same author, maybe it's another one, say, hey, okay, so we couldn't get this back of the book thing done. How about if I really like your book a lot, and I think the people that I'm trying to reach with my marketing efforts really like it. In fact, I have 500 people on my mailing list, and I have this many visitors to my blog and so forth. Do you have a sample, a Mobi and an EPUB sample of your book that you use, or even a PDF sample? Get all three of them that you use to reach out to potential fans, to give to them, to give to anyone who will ask? Well, why don't you give me those files? I'll put them on my website, and I'll promote them to all of my fans. In return, I'd like to give you my 3 files, my Mobi, my EPUB, my PDF, and ask you to do the same to your fans. We'll try it for a week. We'll see if it yields anything. See if it can be a win-win for both of us. So this is less involved than actually putting someone else's work at the end of my book. And what's more involved, it's easier to execute, because now I just need some sample files and the ability to throw them up on my Author Anchor website. During this trial and evaluation period, this is where you may start to think about expanding your review-seeking campaign into out to more unpaid professionals, and you may even be thinking that it's time, as part of your marketing campaign, to include a paid professional. So you may be thinking Blue Ink or Kirkus Reviews, those are expensive, but they can be valuable. If you have prescriptive nonfiction, so you've got a diet book, or you've got a recipe book, or you've got some sort of prescriptive system that you're selling, consider creating a Helpouts entry in the Google Helpouts system. So if you're not familiar with Google Helpouts, I didn't get my page up in time for this webinar, but hopefully I'll have it up soon. It's a place where you as a professional can go and offer your time one-on-one with people that need your service. It's a great way to sort of either, I call it sort of video chatting your way to success. This just adds to your luster as a professional. It can also help you create more superfans. You may also at this point want to start thinking about creating a book trailer. So your book's been out long enough, you've experimented with your description enough, you know what the emotional hook is that works because you've tried 4 of them, and you notice that one of them created better sales than any of the other ones, and you want to create a book trailer. And the second link here in this in this deck that says book trailer, it's actually a great link back to, I think it's Joanna Penn. She's got a pretty good article on how she created her book trailer, and you can actually, she posts it on the page, and she did it by herself. And it's interesting because the process she outlines is roughly the same one that we do for authors, although when you do it, you have to pay for the stock footage and the stock audio. So she probably spent some money doing it and some time doing it, and we offer that same service. But I thought it was interesting because you can see how another author did it. Also, the first link that says create here is a link to animoto.com, ANIMOTO.com. And Animoto's got a great little sort of, here's how you can create a professional-looking video pretty quick for free. And I think that's a very interesting site as well. Also, if you haven't finished evaluating and made a decision one way or the other on KDP Select, I think somewhere in this post-launch phase, maybe 3 weeks into it, or 4 weeks, or 3 months into it, you can look at your sales and say, wow, I'm just not making a dent for whatever reason. I can't figure it out. But I'm not making even the smallest dent on Apple and Kobo and Barnes & Noble and the Google Play Store. And because I'm not making even the smallest dent, it doesn't hurt me to take my ebook off of those sites and go exclusive in the KDP Select program. And I'll give it a try for 90 days. And in that 90 days, I'm going to take my 5 free days, the days that I can set my book price to 0. I'm going to run 2 campaigns, a 3-day campaign and a 2-day campaign. Or I'm going to run a 1 and a 2 and a 2. So if you haven't done that evaluation, about 3 weeks to 3 months after you launch, you want to look at your sales figures and do that math and figure out what would I be giving up if I went exclusive with Amazon, either temporarily or permanently. Okay, we're getting down to the last slide. That's excellent because we've got 6 minutes left. So how to drive more purchases during post-launch. So I mentioned it before. I want you to begin some measured experiments with price. So one of the things you have to remember is when you're turning the dial, if you will, when you're experimenting with different variables of your offer. So the offer on your book page is your book cover, which frankly tells you a lot about the book inside it, your price, your book description. In other words, the elements on your sales page represent your offer. And you want to experiment with one of them at a time. So you might change your genre selection and watch what happens for a month. You might change your book description and watch what happens for 3 weeks, or watch what happens for 2 weeks. Change it again and watch what happens for 2 weeks. You might change your price and see what happens for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But don't change all 4 or change all 3. Don't change your price and your genre and your book description, because if things get better or worse sales-wise, you won't know which one did it. Also, keep an eye on your inventory if you're doing giveaways or you want to have some available because you're doing in-person speaking. If you haven't thought about it, do some investigation online about creating a podcast or an online radio interview in your area of expertise or about your book. There are a lot of podcasters out there who are looking for material. They're not going to pay you anything, but at the end, they're going to give you a great chance to drive people to your website, to tell them about your book, You may even be able to offer a deal at the end. Everyone who comes to your website and in the next 30 minutes or comes to your website and says abracadabra, they get a deal, or you'll send them a signed book cover, a signed book copy if they'll just email you. So also, I keep working on bundling opportunities. This is not the back of the book. This is where you and another author put together a bundle, maybe a couple other offers, and you build a bundle, or build a bundle yourself in Amazon of your own books if you have more than one book out. And then also, again, if you're doing prescriptive nonfiction and you've got some sort of professional practice around that prescriptive nonfiction, I want you to consider bundling that book into your practice, right, if you're not already. You either charge a little more and throw it in, or you throw it in for free. You get people out there who, in their positive experience with you, in whatever thing it is you help people do, your book is engaged and involved in that positive experience. You've got the potential to create another superfan, and I want you to take advantage of that. Okay, so we're back where we started. Final recommendations. Find your superfan. We talked a lot about genre mindshare. We talked about the demographics of superfans. We talked about sizing the market of super readers to figure out what percentage you want to go after as superfans. We talked about the potential dollars in your pocket that a superfan represents. And the best thing I can say is you've got to kind of be a superfan. You've got to get your head into the mindset of a superfan. Where would you go to after you've read all the Dan Brown religious mystery thrillers that are out there? Where do you go next? How do you find the next Dan Brown who's not traditionally published? What would you do? And now go there and do your marketing. But I also want you to feel free to give yourself permission to stop marketing. And you'll probably feel best about it if before you start your marketing, you set yourself a goal or a deadline or a date or a terminal point where you say, okay, I'm done with this book, I'm moving on to the next one, or I'm done spending time on this, I'm going to move on to writing the next one. But think ahead of time. Where is the bottom of the bucket of worms? We have lots of ideas about awareness, interest, trial, purchase. Does anyone have any questions? If you do, throw them up in the question box, and I'll do my very best to answer them now, or I'll follow up with you afterwards. And of course, as always, if you would like a copy of the slides with these embedded links in them, I am more than happy to send them to you. Just send me an email to my BookFuel address. I've already had some email conversations with people from this morning session. I'm happy to have them with you, or if you want to call and talk, I'm happy to do that as well. Thanks, everybody, for joining tonight. Thank you, Ann. I really appreciate it. Hey, Christine, it's great to see you. Hey, Christine, I loved your blog article. That last one you sent me. Thanks so much for sending it. I thought that was fantastic. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your evening. Thanks, Sarah.